Hey guys, welcome back. So with the new year around the corner, it's time again to do some goal setting. Today I'm going to show you how I build my vision board and plan my goals in Notion for the new year. So let's get started. Okay, so like always we'll be starting from an empty page. Let's call this first page 2024 vision board. And then we can do some general page settings in the top right like this. These are the page settings that I use the most because it gives me more space and looks more aesthetic. Next, let's add a page icon and a cover photo. There are a lot of options for emojis and icons, and you can also upload your own in the custom section. As for the cover photo, you can choose from Notion here, or you can upload a custom photo. I like to use Pinterest to look for nice photos of a particular theme. Now that I found some pictures that I want, I can download it from Pinterest like this. And then we can head back to Notion to upload our custom cover photo that we found on Pinterest. So the first part of my vision board is actually an area for some reflections of the past year. If you're following along but just want to make the vision board without this reflection section, feel free to skip this part and go straight to the next part. So now that we've made the heading, let's add a callout box. I think these callout boxes are a really nice way to group things together, so I'll be using quite a few of them in this video. If you open up the settings for the block like this, you can change the color and the icon for the box. So the first reflection box will be weaknesses in 2023. Since it's a heading, I want to make it stand out a little bit more like this. Next, I'm going to add some areas of life for reflection. These are just examples of a few areas that I would use, but you can obviously chop and change these to whatever that works for you. Next, we're going to duplicate the callout box and move it to the next column like this. And we're going to rename this one to Successes in 2023. Now we're ready to move on to the vision board. To make our next vision board section, we're going to duplicate the heading in the first section and rename it. I like to do it like this because it's quicker and it also keeps the formatting consistent. Next, we're going to duplicate the weaknesses callout box and bring it down to the second section. The title of the box will be an area of life you want on your vision board. I want to make the board nice and inspirational by adding an image like this. And also we'll leave a blank bullet point under the image so we can leave notes and comments later into our vision board. Now I'm just going to duplicate the callout box which is made for academic and career. And then I'm going to rename this copied section to lifestyle and experiences. And then we're going to replace the image as well and resize it to fit nicely in our board. So we'll be repeating this process a couple more times until we have all the areas that we want for our vision board. So for me, I try to keep the areas the same as what I had in the 2023 reflections above to just keep everything consistent. Speaking of the 2023 reflections, I'm going to change the bullet points into toggles. I think doing it this way looks a lot better and it also gives me the option to open and collapse my notes when I need. As for the vision board, I'll keep the bullet points to jot down my main visions and goals for each area like this. Otherwise, I think checkboxes also work really well here for listing down goals and visions. Lastly, I'm going to leave a space for an inspirational quote here. For our goal tracker, we're going to be starting a new page in Notion. Then we can add a title. a page icon, and a cover photo for the page. And like before, we're just going to be doing some general page settings like this. So for this page, we're going to be separating our goals into 5 sections. We're going to start by making headings for our first 4 sections. The first section is long-term goals. The second section is yearly goals. The third section is quarterly goals. And the fourth section is a quarterly goals breakdown. So now we're going to do the long-term goals section. These are the goals that we want to achieve in the future that takes a longer time and needs to be broken down into smaller steps. We're going to start by adding a call-out box for this section and then give this box an icon and a title. And then we're going to add a database in the gallery view. This is the database that will be used to keep all our long-term goals. If we use the handle in the top left of the database block, we can drag this database inside our callout box. Then we're going to be making a new database template by clicking New Template on the top right. So here there should be a pop-up with the template and we're going to give it a name like this. Then again, we're going to do the general page settings for this template as well. Then back in the template, we're going to delete the property called created. And then rename the tags property to area. And then add in options for the areas of life that matches with what's on our vision board. Then we're going to make a date property called timeframe, which records when the goal is aimed to be completed. And a checkbox property called complete, which we're going to tick when our goal is accomplished. Then on the top left, we'll click back for the template to save automatically. Then we'll set the new template we've made as the default for when we create long-term goals. Now let's delete these empty records. And let's add a new long-term goal as an example. In my example, I chose learning a language, but other long-term goals can be things like building a business, get a degree, running a marathon, etc. So because it's a gallery view, I also want to give my goal a nice cover photo. And then finally, we'll be customizing the gallery layout with these settings. I typically hide the database title, change the card size to small, and change the card preview to page cover. Lastly, I'll unhide the area property as well. The next section is for our yearly goals. Specifically, we're going to set SMART goals, which are goals that are set in a way which makes them clear, attainable, and meaningful. Same as before, we'll start with a call-out box for the section. And we'll call this section Yearly SMART Goals. We'll also make a new database for this section, but this time we'll be making it in a table view. Let's also give it a title like this. And then head to the top left to make a new template for this database. And again, doing some general page settings because I want to change the font used by the template and also give the page a little bit more space to work with as well. For this database, we also want our SMART goals to be tagged to an area of life. So again, we'll make a multi-select property with the options as the areas in our vision board. Then we'll make a new relation property, which lets us link yearly goals to long-term goals. Then we're going to make another multi-select property for the year. another new property for the end date, a checkbox property called complete, and finally a checkbox property called smart checklist, which we can tick to show that we've made sure that our goal is a smart goal. So now let's move on to making a smart checklist in this template. So by putting this checklist in the template, it will be there every time we make a new goal in this database. So here we're going to give this checklist a title and create toggles for each of the 5 smart categories like this. So now every time we make a goal in the future, we can pop our notes in here. Then we're going to press the back button to save the template. Now again, we're going to set the template that we've just made into the default for this table. And then let's change the table settings to make it look slightly cleaner. For me, I like to hide the database title and the vertical lines so it's less cluttered. Also, you can edit your database template at any time. So for example, I forgot to give my template an icon, so I can just go back and add it in. Then we can just go ahead and delete these empty records. We can also hide the columns that we don't want to see, or we can rearrange the columns until we have what works for us. We can also create different tabs for different years by renaming the views and changing the filters like this. Now let's add a yearly SMART goal as an example. So this example is me trying to finish these textbooks in 2024, and it's in the area of academic and career. It's related to the long-term goal of learning Japanese, and the end date for the goal is the end of the year. I can also open up the goal to do the SMART checklist like this. This next section is where we break down our yearly goals into quarterly goals that are more manageable and easier to track. So let's start by creating a new callout box for the section. And we'll name this section Objectives and Key Results. And then we'll add a board view and drag it into our callout box. And then we're going to add a new database for this view. Same as before, we'll make a new template for adding new goals. We'll give it a name. And you can also customize the page style like this if you want. So now let's add a multi-select property called year. We can also delete the status property because we won't be needing it in this template. And then we're going to make another multi-select property called quarter and add in each of the quarters of the year. The last multi-select property we'll add is area, like we've done previously. Next, we're going to create a relations property which lets us link up quarterly goals to a yearly goal. Next, I'm going to add a section in this template which serves as a reflection space for each goal at the end of a quarter. So there will be a section on what I did well for the goal in this quarter, and a section on where I fell short for the goal for the quarter. And we're just going to finish it off with a nice looking heading. And we'll hit back to save the template. Back in our view, we're just going to delete these empty records first. And then let's set the template which is made as the default. Next, we're going to work on the layout of the board. As an example, I'll put a goal in the first quarter, which is to complete 25 chapters of a textbook. And now I can open up the goal to fill out any further information. So the year and the quarter that the goal is in, the area of the goal, and I can also link this quarterly goal to a yearly goal. I'm going to just make one more goal for the second quarter as an example. Now we're going to head over to the view options to customize the layout. I like to hide the database title and change the card size to small. Then we'll just group the board by area and color the columns like this. Then we're going to make 4 tabs for the 4 quarters of the year. So let's rename our first tab to Q1 and set a filter to only show goals that are tagged to the first quarter. And then we'll duplicate the first tab to make the second quarter. Let's rename this duplicated tab to Q2 and change the filter to only show the Q2 goals. Then we'll do the same thing for Q3. And then one last time for Q4. This next section is where we're going to break down our goals and track the progress. So again, the callout box for the section. And this time we're going to add a database in the table view called to-dos. Then let's add a new template for making a new to-do item. You don't have to make a new template every time you make a new database. I just like to do it because I feel like it's more organized and consistent. Next, let's delete the tags property. Add in a new checkbox property called complete. And add in a relation property which links our to-do items to a quarterly goal. Back in the view, let's delete all the empty records and change the layout to hide the database title and the vertical lines. Again, let's set the template that we've just made into the default. And let me add in an example of how I would use this table. So let's say if a quarterly goal of mine is to complete a Japanese textbook, then my to-dos here will be each chapter of the textbook. And here I can link my to-do item to a quarterly goal. And the reason we're doing this is so we can make a progress bar in a second. So I'm just going to add in a few more chapters here to show you guys how this works. For a cleaner look, in the view options, we can also group our quarterly goals like this. This way we can collapse our goals and open it when we need to see our tasks. Now if we open our quarterly goal, we can see a list of the to-dos that's linked to the goal. For a cleaner look, you can hide the relation property here in the quarterly goal, because you'll always have access to them in the goals breakdown section in the main page. To make a progress bar, we want to first add a rollup property. So let's make a rollup property in the quarterly goals database called total tasks like this. and another rollup property called completed tasks like this. So now as I tick the boxes on the left, the number of completed tasks also gets updated. Now finally, to make a progress bar, we're going to add a formula property called progress. So to calculate the percentage of tasks complete for a goal, this is the formula that I would use. In the settings, you can choose to show the decimal as a percentage. You can also choose to have a percentage bar like this and change the colour. And now when we tick off tasks, the percentages of our quarterly goals also update. I'm just going to add one final thing to this board, and that's just to unhide the percentage bar we just made. Unfortunately, the changes don't carry across tabs, so you just have to unhide it for every tab. Our final section is going to be a little table called milestones. So we're going to start by making a new milestones database. And we're going to make a call out box to put the table in to keep it consistent with the other sections. And then I'm just going to hide the database title and the vertical lines for a cleaner look. Let's rename the tags column to year. And then rename the name column to milestone. Next, let's add a new relation property that links our milestones to our long-term goals. And then also a date property called end date to show when our milestones end. Let's do an example of a milestone. So for example, if my long-term goal is learning Japanese, then the milestone could be passing a Japanese exam. So in my database, I can link my milestone to its long-term goal like this. And if the exam's scheduled on a certain day, then I can also put that in. And finally, I'm also going to add in a countdown. So I'm going to add in a new formula property and type in a longish formula to count the days left. So now if your milestone date's in the future, it will show you days left. And if your milestone date's past, it will tell you the milestone's passed. So that's everything in terms of setup with a few examples. Thanks for planning with me today. If you want to learn more about how I set up and use Notion, feel free to subscribe or check out my other videos.